Welcome into the third episode of the Bird and the Bear podcast. Michael Knauff and Cameron Carriglio getting set for week 2 of the college football season. We're off a pretty exciting week 1, a good week all the way around. We had 5 days of college football, and frankly, I didn't think it really disappointed, Cameron.
Honestly, most games were a lot of fun. Like, even games that were kind of blowouts. Honestly, I thought Notre Dame Louisville was a dud. That game was like watching a kind of a trash NFL game. But aside from that, I was pleasantly surprised. The Saturday slate was fantastic.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
Normally, half the games that are touted as like single-digit lines and big-time games, like 40-point deficits by the end. So it was nice seeing some upsets, some comebacks, teams we hate losing. That was nice.
Yeah, as Florida fans, watching Tennessee and Florida State implode was probably the highlight of the entire weekend.
I mean, since we're already going there, the fact Tennessee losing simply shocking.
You lose to a 2-10 Georgia State team who finished last in the Sun Belt the year before.
And Georgia State played several times on like Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays last year, so I actually got to unfortunately watch like 3 or 4 of their games. One of those games was against Memphis, and they lost by 37 and were down by as many as, I think, 50. And they just weren't a good team. Like, it wasn't like a 2-10, like, oh, they lost 5 or 6 close games that they could have won. No, they sucked. They actually sucked. And they honestly just looked straight up better than Tennessee. It wasn't fluky.
No.
They played really, really well.
And Tennessee was out-muscled at line of scrimmage. They got pushed around. Georgia State ran the ball really well on them.
It looked like near the end of the third quarter, once Georgia State went up 28-23, it felt like Tennessee kind of stopped giving a shit.
So did their Twitter.
And so did 2 other players who quit the program.
It was a rough week for folks in Knoxville.
I'm surprised Pruitt's house is still standing, but
we'll see how that
was a lot of fun.
We'll see how long that lasts after this week.
Now they got BYU.
That's not going to be easy.
It's more boring, but better than Georgia State, ostensibly.
Yeah. And then the other one for Florida State, totally falling apart. They're 31-13 at halftime, scored nothing in the second half, and
well, Hank Bachmeier showed some moxie because he didn't look very good in that first half at all.
He was under pressure constantly.
Yeah.
He took a couple shots under the chin where I was surprised that he even got back up.
Yeah, and that loss for FSU wouldn't have been as embarrassing had it been like tied at halftime or a 7-point lead or deficit or something like that. But to basically just watch the lead melt away, and then it may have ended up not really affecting the final result, but when 2 guys fought for that fumble in the red zone and neither of them came up with it, and Boise State pretty much immediately scored.
It's pretty emblematic of how that game was going to end up in just the kind of second half that Florida State had.
They're not disciplined. I mean, they've never really been particularly disciplined, but they were talented enough and their play calling was good enough to make up for it. And now they have Free Willy and his cronies coaching. I thought Kendall Briles called a hell of a first half.
Oh, absolutely. The Florida State offense actually looked competent. Blackman was throwing the ball incredibly well.
And in the second half, their offensive line is still not very good.
No, not. Blackman was under a lot of pressure in the second half, and attrition-wise, Boise State just lasted the whole game. I mean, they ran 108 plays on Florida State's defense, but
FSU was dehydrated, Michael.
That's the thing that baffles me.
Why would you say that out loud?
How do you play?
And then come back a day later and joke about it in a press conference.
And how do you play in the state of Florida and not prepare yourself, or like have any knowledge the fact that it's like 95% humidity all the time?
Your in-state rivals invented an electrolyte drink. Use it.
Well, they don't even have
There's
Gatorade.
also an off-brand called Powerade.
Which is what they use.
Oh, they do use
They
Powerade?
have Powerade, yeah.
No wonder it's an inferior product. But, yeah, that's embarrassing, and they can't afford to buy him out.
Well, did you see?
I want them to hire him forever.
Speaking of buyouts, did you see that Jeremy Pruitt, obviously his buyout's huge too, but Tennessee was selling those gray helmets for $1,000 to alumni to try to raise money?
Oh, I wonder why.
Yeah.
No one was touching them with a 10-foot pole. None of their fan base even likes those helmets.
Yeah, they're disgusting. Those uniforms.
There's a reason they're out of commission.
Yeah. But aside from us being happy about our 2 of our probably 3 biggest rivals losing, there was a lot of other storylines from week 1. You really wanted to talk about Purdue and how they just totally squandered a double-digit lead to Nevada.
Yeah, Jeff Brom's overrated. I mean, he's built his legacy on taking over a Western Kentucky team that already wasn't bad, with Brandon Doty at the helm, who was ridiculous. I think he's the last 5,000-yard passer we've had in FBS. Don't quote me on that, but I think he might be. I think he threw like 5,200 his senior year. It was crazy good. And at Purdue, he went, what was 2 years ago, 6 and 7? 5 and 7?
They were 5 and 7.
5 and 7
2 years ago. Yeah.
And last year they blew out Ohio State, but went 6 and 6, and they got thrashed in the bowl game. And honestly, from when I saw that Nevada game, they looked pretty good for about 3 1/4 quarters. And then the play calling was not great. They played conservative, and that's exactly what lost them games last year. And I don't know what kind of memory he has, because what really got them to blow out Ohio State last year was they didn't let up at all. I mean, they were still chunking the ball and being aggressive late in the fourth. And I don't know why he hasn't had that mentality, especially coming into the season. He acknowledged that the reason they lost so many games last year was because he got conservative. And you turn around on the road against a fairly talented, very well-coached Nevada team and somehow lose to a true freshman quarterback.
And about Brandon Doty and the 5,000 passing yards, Patrick Mahomes did it in 2016.
Okay, that was the name I was thinking.
He was the only one that's done it since. So 2016, Doty did it in 2015 with 5,055 yards, which is the 11th most all-time in college football history.
Yeah, he had a couple games where he's throwing for like 490 a week. It was crazy. And then just jumping to another Mountain West team. How about Wyoming?
I was so surprised. I mean, Kelly Bryant balled out, but
he also kind of couldn't get out of his own way. Threw a red zone pick, was responsible for at least one fumble. And then at least one of those fumbles and the pick resulted in immediate Wyoming touchdowns.
And I didn't think Wyoming was going to be any challenge at all for Missouri. I did not see that coming at all.
I love Phil Steele to death, but he projected Mizzou as a 10-win team and felt pretty confident about it.
A lot of people have had Missouri as 8-0 going into their game against Georgia. I've heard that across a lot of platforms, whether it be the SEC Network, various podcasts I listen to. I mean, people are in on the Mizzou hype train, and it's disintegrated in 1 week.
They could write the shit, but that's concerning. That's kind of like an old school Mizzou loss. I mean, I grew up there. A lot of my friends would always kind of complain about those. They don't have a great track record in games like that, going back 20, 25 years. And I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny, personally, but just accentuated a really bad day for the SEC, especially considering that the Fighting Muschamps incomprehensibly blew that lead to North Carolina
against a true freshman quarterback who led a 90-yard.
Who looked really, really good.
Well, I was looking at the Pro Football Focus numbers. He had a perfect passer rating on deep balls in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Phil Longo is their OC. I mean, we saw what Ta'amu did and Shea Patterson at Ole Miss, and he really opened him up in the second half. I think he had like 60-something yards at halftime, finished with 254.
Oh, yeah, Sam Howell looked fantastic.
His numbers might get pretty gaudy, especially because ACC secondaries generally aren't spectacular.
Yeah, and that South Carolina defense might be arguably the best he's going to face all year.
Potentially, yeah.
Except Miami's this week, obviously up there as well. Maybe better than South Carolina, but after these 2 weeks, I don't think he's going to see a secondary that's even remotely as good as either of these teams. So Sam Howell certainly could put up some really nice numbers for
especially
Mac Brown.
going forward. And it was kind of nice seeing Mac Brown get back in the win column, and I've always liked him. He's so wholesome.
He really is. I mean, the way his tenure at Texas ended was kind of disheartening, and it's good to see him kind of back at it. And it is where it all started for him.
Running
at
a
UNC.
modern offense.
So UNC, I mean, they might make a bowl. You think UNC can make a bowl?
That win helps immensely. If they had lost close, I would say still probably. But I mean, they won. That helps. They need 5 more. I think they can find 5 more on an ACC schedule. 3 more out of conference games.
And then on the flip side, for South Carolina, Jake Bentley essentially done for the year, and they're going to be turning to a true freshman, Ryan Hilinski. It's too close to Helsinki.
I'm actually really rooting for him against teams that aren't us. Because he's Tyler Helinski's brother.
Yeah, that's would be a really
That'd be kind
good
of a
story.
Cool story. I mean, really, how much worse off are they? Do you really think Bentley's that great of a quarterback? I mean, he torched Clemson last year, but he needed to. I mean, Clemson was kind of letting him. And I'd never really bought Bentley.
He's kind of reached his ceiling, and
He reached his ceiling as a sophomore. He hasn't gotten demonstrably better aside from his stats have bumped a little bit every year. That's just because Muschamp decided to welcome the modern age of football and discovered the downfield pass. I mean, they're definitely going to be worse off, but I don't see it impacting their win total by more than 1 or 2 games.
no, they'll make a bowl probably. They'll,
Yeah.
well, that's fair considering their schedule.
Their schedule is brutal.
Yeah.
UNC was considered kind of a sure thing.
That was kind of their guaranteed win to start the season.
I thought it was a sure thing.
Yeah,
I had no doubt picking South Carolina in that game.
I think everyone was thoroughly shocked by that. And I mean, this week South Carolina that has UL Monroe, so should be, knock on wood, a win for South Carolina this week. I mean, that's about as
UL Monroe plays FSU.
they play some team in Louisiana. I know that.
They play UL Lafayette.
It might be that. It might be Lafayette.
I mean, they hung with Miss State last week.
They only lost by 10 to Mississippi State. The Fighting Joe Moorheads did not put up the greatest performance defensively.
Joe Moorhead's got to be so happy Nick Fitzgerald is gone. He was actually able to throw the ball. Tommy Stevens looked pretty good. I mean, I know it was against the Sun Belt team, but Georgia State is too. And I thought he looked pretty good. I didn't see much of the game, but the highlights, he
Yeah,
looked pretty good. His
confident
stats looked
numbers.
pretty solid.
No, we're totally off. South Carolina hosts Charleston Southern.
Oh, well, that's a win.
So that's a win. It's an FCS school. But regarding the rest of the SEC, I mean, Arkansas beats Portland State by 7 points. They only put 20 points on them.
Not a shocker. I know Chad Morris is hailed as like this offensive mind, but SMU's offenses weren't awesome under him. I mean, he had some talent. Cortland Sutton was there, but they were okay. But I don't know. That result actually didn't shock me. It's because I think Arkansas is going to continue to be pretty bad.
Yeah, and their game against Ole Miss this weekend will basically be who gets to finish 6th in the SEC West instead of 7th.
I can't wait to not watch that game. Ole Miss looked horrific.
It was their offense was so vanilla. I can't, and the fact that people.
It's okay to be vanilla and win. Like, I feel like UF was kind of vanilla again in the Miami game, and I would have really irked me more if we had lost. But you got to be vanilla, and you got to win if you're going to be vanilla.
Well, Matt Corral only completed 9 passes the whole game.
And I thought he looked pretty good when he came in for Ta'amu last year. I mean, limited capacity. He was like 22 or 32 for like 3-something. But I mean, what the hell? And then that rumored physical altercation he had with Rich Rod. Has that been?
I don't think anything. I think it might have been just a rumor. I don't know if it happened, but Rich Rodriguez
Called a really poor
horrendous game.
I mean, it wouldn't shock me if for the rest of the year Memphis' defense allows 30 a game. Because I even really think it was good D. But on both sides, I thought it was just really atrocious offense.
I agree.
Because on Memphis' end, I thought Brady White didn't look any better than
They
last
threw
year.
a lot of just screen passes to receivers that were very poorly blocked,
Yeah.
and it was an ugly game.
Yeah, that was a bad game.
Yeah.
I didn't like watching that game.
But the SEC did have one highlight from week 1, and that was Auburn pulling off a win over Oregon 27-21. Auburn led for 9 seconds that whole game, and Oregon squandered that, but Auburn's going to have to take it.
Yeah, I'm not convinced Bo Nix is a good quarterback. I mean, he's 18, at least yet. Even that last ball that he threw was not a great throw.
It's a better play by the receiver than it was
And
throw.
a really bad play by Oregon's corner. Auburn should be getting on their hands and knees and thanking Arroyo, Oregon's offensive coordinator. That was some of the worst play calling I've ever seen in a big-time situation.
They ran the same pass into the flat to the running back to start, at least 6 or 7 drives.
No, like 3rd and 7, they were doing it again and again. And what killed me, in the first quarter, Herbert was 9 of 11 for a $109 and a touchdown. Why didn't he continue to do that? They were running deep posts. They were getting to the sidelines. Things were downfield. He was sending guys to the end zone, like on that big fucker.
Their tight end.
Dylan Bell, I think his name is.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And they looked like, wow, this isn't the same really conservative Oregon offense of last year. And that just seemed like they played not to lose the rest of the game. I mean, that was a high school offense they were running. Like, you have the best QB prospect in the nation, according to some people, and the best you can do is that. Why did he come back another year? Like, you just ruined his year.
I mean, that's the thing. Like, he was like, I think, finished 26 for 37, so a decent completion percentage.
29 to 37.
So 29 to 37, even better. I mean, he still threw for what, 260?
242. That's really not that much.
That's
123 and 3/4 after the first quarter.
And I mean, you can say play calling, but also you have to tip your cap to Auburn's defense for taking care of business in the second half on their end. I mean, that front seven is for real. They're very, very talented.
They did a really good job of suffocating Oregon's run game. Because, I mean, Verdell and Dye are two really, really good running backs that were shredding, like, decent defenses in the Pac-12 last year. And neither of them really did much. And then, I mean, obviously that fumble. I know that it only resulted in 3 Auburn points, but it probably lost Oregon the game.
No momentum.
By the end of it. Well, and they would have either scored 7 or 3. That's a swing. And it gave Auburn a little bit of momentum, like, hey, we can win this thing. And then they did. But I don't think it was necessarily anything Auburn did spectacularly well. Their defense showed up.
And offensively, they were very, very plain.
Yeah.
The entire game until that last drive, really. I mean, Gus Malzahn's going to run the ball until he can't anymore. And it did show Oregon's defense they wore down a bit in the fourth quarter.
I don't know, though, because, I mean, if you look at the bowl game last year, he opened up the floodgates for Stidham. They were like 359 and a half against Purdue. I think he wants to throw a little bit more because Nix isn't particularly mobile, and Malzahn always liked quarterback runs. So I think once he gets more comfortable with Nix, getting like a Sam Howell situation, maybe not the same numbers, but you'll see Nix get his numbers up a couple times this year.
I think
300 plus, something like that. I could see it happening.
I mean, I think Auburn finishes the year 8-4.
Yeah, hopefully one of those losses does. But
I think I have them losing to us, A&M, Bama, and LSU.
yeah,
And I mean, if you're Auburn with a true freshman quarterback and the kind of schedule that they have, you got to take that.
yeah.
So other storylines from around the country, out west, JT Daniels done for the year, tore his ACL after it looked like he was going to have a very promising season in Graham Harrell's air raid offense. I mean, looked pretty efficient in the first half, but Keaton Slovis, true freshman, will now be the starter for USC. And what does this tell? What's this mean for the Trojans?
They go from 7 wins to 6. It's the air raid. It's kind of plug and play, quite frankly. I mean, you look at some of the no names that some air raid offenses have had, and they've turned out fine. It's also it's a very space oriented offense. I thought Slovis actually looked pretty good on the limited opportunities he had in the second half.
6 for 8, they throw a pick, but
also threw a beautiful deep ball to Tyler Vaughns early in the second half. And honestly, Daniels was 25 34, 215. You need to be a little better than that. I mean, that's not a very good ratio. But he did look like he'd progress. It's unfortunate, especially if Slovis balls out. Daniels is probably going to transfer.
Yeah, and Slovis was only a 3-star coming in, and people were surprised that he even won the backup job.
Yeah.
And now he's a chance. I mean, he's facing Stanford in his first career start, which
Stanford already ended T.J. Green's season. Did you hear about that?
I did not.
Yeah, so Hunter Johnson, I mentioned he was like as bad as you could be. T.J. Green actually supplanted him and then tore his labrum, I think.
Oh,
on
God.
like the last play of the game.
That's really sad.
So he's done. So it's Hunter Johnson all the way for Northwestern.
And that, yeah, going up against Stanford's defense to begin your college career is not an easy task.
And Stanford kind of has USC's number anyway.
USC is a 1-point favorite right now in that game, which...
Well, KJ Costello is questionable as well.
So we're not expecting points a whole lot in that game. We'll get to that when we get to our pick section more. And the final 2 points for recapping Week 1 is 2 quarterbacks who lit it up. Anthony Gordon at Washington State, and then obviously Jalen Hurts on Sunday night for Oklahoma. Probably the 2 best quarterback performances of the weekend.
Alan Bowman, I thought played really well, 40-55, 436. And Anthony Gordon's competition was only slightly better. 15 of 15, 266, and 4 touchdowns at one point in that game for Anthony Gordon.
He's like I think we said a 325 quarterback rating. 337. It was 337 quarterback rating.
He slowed down a little bit the rest of the game, but was still pretty good. 29 to 35, 425 touchdowns, and I think like a nudge under 3 quarters.
He was pulled late, yeah.
Yeah, Gabrud played a good bit. And it actually looked like they were running the ball really efficiently, which means Alabama might put up 80 on New Mexico State this weekend. That defense did not look good. I mean, Washington State put up 58. They probably could have put up 72. And then Jalen Hurts, how about him?
Over 500 yards of total offense, 176 on the ground, over 300 through the air, 3 touchdowns running, 3 touchdowns rushing, or pat through the air. And I honestly thought that they were going to feed Kenny Brooks and Trey Sermon way more than what they did, but Lincoln Riley was like, this is your show, Jalen Hurts, and he did not disappoint.
They put up damn near 700 yards of offense. What's concerning is they did that, only scored 49 points, and aside from a garbage touchdown after a failed onside kick, they were only up by 11 to a Houston team that wasn't really running Dana Holgerson's offense.
It took a while for Houston to kind of warm up and for Derek King to get his groove. I thought King, from basically the second quarter on, looked like Derek King from last year.
He looked faster to me.
And he was very elusive. Very elusive.
Well, he's actually smaller than I thought he was. He's only 5'11", which I thought he was like at least 6'1". He plays a little bit bigger. And he'll get his yards passing. I think Oklahoma is one of the better secondaries he'll play, even though probably isn't great. But, I mean, he had 0 passing yards in the first quarter and warmed up after that. If I'm Oklahoma, my one concern is that you got basically a perfect game from your offense and let Houston kind of hang in. That won't do against teams like Texas once they hit the Big 12 schedule. Or it could just be a fluke,
or Houston's offense could end up just being that good. It's possible for that to be the case.
Yeah. And Oklahoma was losing field position most of the night. Their drives were generally pretty lengthy. So, yeah, watching Hurts was a joy, though.
It's honestly really nice to see him succeed, because he could have left Alabama at the drop of a hat when Tua was named the starter.
Yeah. He looks like he's gained damn near 20 pounds of muscle.
He looks like a running back.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a quarterback. And his accuracy looked better, too. He threw some passes over the middle in traffic that I don't think he could have made last season.
He was making really smart decisions, too. I mean, most of the receivers had some space, but yeah, you're right. He was fitting balls in the middle between 2 linebackers that I wouldn't even see him attempting a couple years ago. Because he's always been smart. He's never turned the ball over. But now if he couples that with, like, real arm talent, and it seems like he's running significantly faster.
His acceleration's
They might three-peat on the Heisman. It's plausible.
It's definitely could happen. I would not be after watching him in their opener. I would not be surprised if Hurts wins the Heisman.
No,
because like you said, they're not going to face defenses really that are anything special in the Big 12.
I think Houston's about the bar for the most part.
Texas is the only team. Maybe if Iowa State didn't have such a poor showing this past weekend, I would say that potentially they could stifle that offense a little bit, but
Iowa State still only allowed like 270 yards. I mean, that game was 13-13 going into OT, and 7 of those points were defensive. So regulation time, they allowed 6 points.
Yeah,
Iowa State's defense is for real. Whether their offense can hold serve is something else. I think WVU's defense looked pretty solid.
And James
they're running an entirely different style of football than we've seen WVU run.
Yeah, it's a massive adjustment for them.
They're actually running an air raid, but it's Neil Brown's hybrid kind of slow air raid that I've never quite understood. We've talked about that. I don't really like the way he runs his offense.
Yeah, it makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, but I mean, Austin Kendall, once he got in a groove against James Madison, he actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, and James Madison's no pushover.
No.
I mean, and they're breaking in a new head coach, too.
They're better than I would venture 50 FBS teams. I think you pull them up right now, they probably go 7-5, depending on what conference you put them in.
If you put them in the Conference USA or the Sun Belt, I would agree they probably finish about 7-5.
Yeah.
6-6 at worst, I'd say.
Or just be Georgia Southern and come up and go 10-3.
Yeah, or that could happen. But in terms of just overall conferences, we basically talked about how much the SEC sucked.
Yeah,
they lost the week. But I thought the Mountain West performed incredibly well. We've talked about Boise State, Nevada, and Wyoming. But Utah State should have very easily beaten Wake Forest. They lost only by 3 in Winston-Salem.
Newman doesn't hit Sage Surratt on that 70-yard heave. They likely win. Or Jordan Love doesn't throw that pick in the red zone. They at least tie. That was a hell of a game.
Oh, it was a lot of fun.
Those were two actually pretty good teams, I think. Wake Forest looked, to me, better than they have in a long, long time. But probably the best team Clawson's had. I think Jamie Newman brings a lot of stability to that offense.
Yeah, he's over 400 yards in that game.
Yeah.
And
then Fresno State, I mean, Jeff Tedford is a hell of a coach. I know they lost, but he honestly coached circles around Clay Helton.
Oh, they hung in there. The fact that it was only an 8-point game.
Yeah. And Jorge Reyna, the new QB for Fresno State, improved vastly over the course of the game. First half, he was basically running for his life. Wasn't looking too accurate passing the ball. Finished with 256 and 2 scores. I mean, in Mountain West play, those numbers will improve. And he was ballsy, hung in. I think they're maybe repeating against Boise State in the title game.
And defensively, as the game went on, they got better.
I thought they did pretty well. It's tough to play an air raid when you're not really used to seeing it. And they did admirably. And it felt like every time that USC tried to pull away, they just wouldn't let it happen. And that's the mark of a good team. I actually, bold prediction, I think Jeff Tedford's USC's next head coach.
Wow.
It makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, I can see that.
I mean, same state. He's familiar with recruiting there. I mean, bigger scale at USC. They're competing for better players. But he's still familiar with the terrain, familiar with the coaches. Runs kind of like a USC-ish offense to me. Very, very balanced. His defenses always are pretty solid, very good. I think he's the next head coach because I don't think Helton lasts past this year. Because I think Helton has to win 8 or 9 games this year to keep his job. No matter who the QB is.
They've underperformed greatly, and the fact that with Sam Darnold there, they weren't better.
I mean, they were. I mean, they made an orange or not orange.
They won the Rose Bowl.
Made a Rose Bowl and a Cotton Bowl, right?
Yeah, they lost the Cotton Bowl to Ohio State 24-7 the year after they won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, last year was really their only down year. That was a true freshman quarterback. But Helton in-game coaching is not great. I think that's where Tedford would fill a void.
So overall, if you want to count Week 0 as part of Week 1, the Mountain West went 4-3 against Power 5 teams.
Yeah.
So I tip the cap to that, and 2 of those losses were by a score or less. And Colorado State put 31 points up on Colorado. And
they just can't play defense. I think Mike Bobo's probably done after this year, too. He's gone 7-6, 7-6, 7-6, 3-9. I feel like 3-9 might kind of be on the horizon again. So, but yeah, I mean, it was fun watching them play. I love seeing the Mountain West be fun. Because when offenses are firing on all cylinders in that conference, it's like watching the old school whack. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's very enjoyable, and once we get into conference play for the Mountain West, there'll be a lot of very intriguing matchups down the road.
I could see it being a weird year where like a 3-loss team gets into the title game in that conference.
Just because there's so much parity.
Yeah. Remember, was it 5 years ago, Fresno State made the title game at 6-6?
Yeah.
Lost, and then how they had an automatic bowl tie-in and lost and went 6-8 as a division winner.
So weird. So weird. You gotta love college football. So now we're on to Week 2, and this week is loaded with a lot of juicy games. We'll just kind of go through the games we think are marquee, and I mean there's a lot to choose from, but we're going to start on Friday night. Marshall goes to number 24, now Boise State. Battle of 2 pretty good quarterbacks, and Boise State's a 12-point favorite in Boise. And I think this game has the potential to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll probably take the under there. I think Marshall's going to be very, very good this year. Like, potentially could get ranked good. I think Isaiah Green brings quarterback stability they haven't had in a few years. Because Chase Litton was good, but he was inconsistent. And Isaiah Green last year, I think he had 9 starts. Brought stability and definitely improved over the course of the season. And he played really well against, obviously, nobody last Saturday. But I think it'll be a close game. I think Marshall's defense might be comparably good to Florida State's. I think like 31-24 Boise.
The line's 12. Boise got.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Yeah, I think it'll be a lot closer than that.
Unless like a garbage time TD happens, like the bad beat in the Oklahoma-Houston game.
Yeah.
That was a really bad beat. They could have knelt on it and decided not to.
So you have Boise State in that game.
Top one, though.
Yeah, I'll take Boise State as well, but it'll be a fun game. It's on Friday night on ESPN2, so some exposure there. Moving on to Saturday, Cincinnati goes to number 5 Ohio State. Ohio State 16-point favorite. Cincinnati coming off a win over UCLA. Ohio State obviously thumped FAU, but stagnated a bit in the second half offensively.
They got outscored after the first quarter. So you take one perfect quarter away and that game's tight. And they played their starters most of the time. So you can viably say that game was not a blowout. By what they were expecting, at least.
It's 45-21, and yeah, after a 28-0 first quarter, you'd expect that to be much worse.
And Cincinnati is good, disciplined, defense is stout. I think Ohio State covers, though. That just doesn't seem like a game they would lose to me.
It doesn't. I'm feeling like 35-17.
Something like
that. That's 18 points. That covers the spread.
Probably not the prettiest for Ohio State, but I don't think it's going to be particularly tight.
It won't be it won't be a gimme for Ohio State.
I'd like to be wrong because I'd like to watch a tight game like that, but I think they got them.
On to another Big Ten team. Army goes to Ann Arbor and plays at number 7 Michigan. Michigan's a 22-point favorite, but will Michigan have enough possessions to even get up by 22?
I don't know. I watched pretty much all of the Rice-Army game last week. That was a ghastly game to watch.
14-7.
And Rice actually had a lot of possessions. Army really, really struggled to convert on third down, fourth down. It was really odd to watch because they returned almost everybody. For an academy, that's really strange when returning a bunch of starters. But it's also the triple option, and it's a very well-coached Army team. So who the hell knows? Michigan could win by 50, or it could be like Oklahoma last year. I mean, because Army last year in their opener got lit up by Duke. So it's really game by game. But if Michigan gets enough possessions, I think they cover pretty easily.
It's just a matter of how many often they get the ball.
Yeah.
And
I mean, Rice's front seven isn't exactly intimidating. So the fact that Army put up 14 points is scaring me away from picking that game to be close.
I hope it will be. Preseason, this was a game we kind of were looking forward to, just kind of the history of that Army had last year against Oklahoma, and
tempering my expectations.
Moving on to the ACC now, a game that all of a sudden got really tight on the line. Syracuse heads to Maryland. Maryland's a 2-point favorite after Maryland put up 79 points on Howard last week, and Syracuse put up 24 on Liberty. Maryland's better, but Syracuse ranked this season with a pretty stout defense.
If Tommy DeVito figures out Syracuse is going to be just as good as last year, he looked really bad against Liberty. Quite frankly, I'm hesitant to even pick in this game because I have no idea. Zero. Not a clue who's going to win. I'm literally going to, when we do our picks, I'm just going to blindfold myself and underline one because I really don't know.
And I don't think playing in Maryland means anything whatsoever.
Probably not.
And like you said, when I told you the line, half hour ago, it was Syracuse -1 earlier today.
Yeah.
That shows you how much that line has changed, just in the past few hours. It'll be fun. I think it'll be a good game. I mean, Josh Jackson, I think, is the guy for Maryland. He's probably the best quarterback they've had.
God,
I can't name one Maryland quarterback other than Boomer Esiason off the top of my head.
They haven't had a QB last a full season in like 10 years almost. It's just crazy.
That's absurd. Gonna move on to one of the two biggest ranked matchups of the day. Texas A&M heads to Death Valley to play Clemson. 12 versus 1 matchup. Clemson is a 16.5 point favorite. That's down a full point than it was this morning. It was 17.5. Clemson. I think the consensus is that Clemson's going to win this game, but will A&M cover the spread?
I don't think so. I don't know why. I feel like being at A&M last year was a big boon for A&M.
It's a tough place to play.
Very. And it's also an older Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence wasn't even playing that entire game yet, mind you. Kelly Bryant was still playing for Clemson at that point. And I know Clemson didn't look particularly great except for ETN against Georgia Tech. But I have them winning this game pretty easily. I think it's going to be one that everybody gets up for and is super excited about. Ends up being not that great of a game.
I mean, yeah, Trevor Lawrence didn't play well against Georgia Tech, but I don't think that's going to happen twice. I seriously think, I doubt with the kind of offensive line they have, and then Ross and Higgins on the outside, I don't see Trevor Lawrence having a game like he did against Georgia Tech the rest of the season. I mean, A&M's defense obviously is much better, than Georgia Tech's is.
I mean, Jeff Collins is a hell of a defensive coach. It looks like they had him game plan pretty well once you take away ETN's 93-yard touchdown run. That hurt. But, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I don't think it's going to be very close.
The hype going in will be what makes the game.
Yeah.
I'm thinking somewhere like 38-17, 38-14 maybe. Moving on to a Big 12 SEC matchup. West Virginia goes to Missouri. Mizzou's 13-point favorite. We've touched on both teams earlier, and this game has the potential to be very high scoring, I think.
I actually don't. Nothing that West Virginia did last Saturday told me they're going to score a lot of points this year. I think actually Missouri gets back on their feet in this game a little bit. I think this is a nice potential turnaround win for them, because I don't see Kelly Bryant making the stupid mistakes that he had against Wyoming again. And Wyoming's run game is probably better than West Virginia's. Do I think they cover 13? No.
The over-under 63.
That's way too high. I put good money on
the under?
Yeah. I don't think anybody watched West Virginia play last week that thinks that line is going to hold up.
No, I mean, yeah, we talk about JMU is a good team and they have a pretty stout defense, but you shouldn't be putting only 20 up in Morgantown against an FCS school.
No. And Vandy Purdue.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I mean, you have some of the most talented receivers in the nation. Lipscomb for Vanderbilt going up against Rondale Moore for Purdue. I think there's going to be some fireworks in that game potentially.
I don't know, because Vandy doesn't have an offense aside from Keyshawn Vaughn and Lipscomb. I mean, Vaughn could very well run for 250, and my point is moot. But they still don't really have a quarterback. Riley Neal looked far from convincing.
I mean, when you had to face Georgia in your first start, that's pretty tough.
Honestly, I thought Vandy's defense looked pretty solid.
I did too, especially in the second half. Georgia had to settle for 3 field goals in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, they allowed a lot of yards, but generally, if I'm Vandy, I take 30 points against Georgia.
Especially after having gone down 21-0 in the first quarter and a half.
Yeah, it was quick. Really boring game after that.
It was very stagnant. So Purdue's a 7-point favorite in Purdue.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I think
Purdue needs to bounce back. I think they get it.
Moving on to an old Big 12 rivalry. Nebraska heads to Colorado. Nebraska's a 4-point favorite. Nebraska struggled with South Alabama last week.
I'm going to take Colorado here, actually.
I kind of agree with you, honestly.
Because I watched all of both of their games, and I thought Colorado looked a lot better against a similarly talented opponent. Could even argue that Colorado State's more talented than South Alabama, and they looked better against them. I was surprised at how tepid Nebraska's offense looked. I mean, if you take away the first quarter, right, they were kind of moving the ball mechanically, and they looked really good. They were struggling for the better part of 3 quarters. I mean, they got a defensive touchdown and a punt return touchdown in that game. 21 offensive points against a Sun Belt team.
That's not something to hang your hat on. And obviously Colorado put, 52 on Colorado State.
They basically just ran at will. And, I mean, last year, that was a hell of a game. So I think it'll be fun again.
Yeah, and they're playing in Boulder.
Yeah.
So
an excited Boulder, worth noting.
65 is the over-under.
I'll take the under.
Yeah, this will be fun. BYU goes to Tennessee. Tennessee's a 4-point favorite in Neyland, and we talked about it briefly earlier, but Tennessee needs to win this game.
And they very well might not. I'm going to pick them. It's tough for me to say they're going to get upset twice in a row like that. And I thought BYU didn't look great against Utah. I mean, nobody really looks great against Utah. Even when you beat Utah, you don't look great against them generally.
It's gotta be it's a grinded out kind of win if you are able to beat the Utes.
But I think that BYU's run game isn't nearly as good as Georgia State's. At least consistently productive. They're not going to run any weird option looks. They're going to be fairly vanilla. So unless Tennessee gets beat through the air, which Lord knows they're Tennessee, it might happen. I see them beating BYU.
Then they have to. If they do end up falling to BYU, I mean, you've essentially lost your fan base and morale.
Yeah.
And Jeremy Pruitt could very easily see himself out midway or through the season potentially.
Yeah.
To the biggest game of the week, number 6 LSU goes to number 9 Texas. LSU's a 6.5-point favorite, and that's jumped a full point from earlier today. It was 5.5. This has the potential to be a lot of fun, but it seems like people are leaning pretty heavily towards LSU, however, for the overall result.
Yeah, I'm torn. I like Texas here, actually. Maybe just because they're at Texas. I'm pretty sure if the tables are reversed, I would be pretty hard on LSU.
It's weird you say that because I was listening to another podcast earlier, and the beat writer for LSU's 24/7 was on there. He both predicted this year's and for some reason next year's game between LSU and Texas, and he thinks the road teams have the advantages in both games. I don't know why.
No one really has the advantage in Death Valley. I mean, you could make the argument in Texas. Stadium's a nudge smaller, right?
A little bit, yeah. It still has 100,000 plus capacity.
I don't know. I have a funny feeling about Texas here.
Do you buy the Joe Burrow and the new offense hype at LSU?
I mean, I thought they were going to struggle a little bit with Georgia Southern because Georgia Southern's a good team, or what appears to be a good team, and Joe Burrow played 2.5 quarters, so I don't know. Maybe Joe Burrow looked a lot better in the bowl game last year against UCF. But before that, he was on a 4-game stretch of no touchdown passes.
I saw something funny earlier on Twitter. In the month of October last year, Joe Burrow threw 1 touchdown pass, and it was a pick 6 to Brian Edwards.
I like Joe Burrow. I actually think he's a pretty good quarterback. And obviously he looked great against Georgia Southern. But I don't know. I do buy Ellinger because you know what you're getting from him.
Oh, yeah, you're going to get...
I mean, that's not a particularly explosive offense, but I feel like they have the opportunity to move the ball in LSU. And if they force 1 or 2 turnovers, I could see him winning. And I'm going to pick them, I think.
I mean, LSU does get Michael Divinity Jr. back for this game.
That's key. And also, let's bear in mind, I know Texas blew out Louisiana Tech, but they did allow 334 passing yards to Jamar Smith. So if they decide to throw, if LSU decides to throw quite a bit, I think their chance of winning improves. Because Texas's front seven is pretty nasty.
Yeah, and I don't think the LSU's going to be able to run the ball a whole lot. I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a good back, but he's nothing special.
I would venture to say this is probably LSU's worst running back core in 10 years.
Wow.
We can go back further. Stephen Ridley years, so like 08, 09.
Jacob Hester as well, going back a little even further.
I mean, this is not a very notable running back core. I mean, last year wasn't either, with Brissett and Edwards-Helaire. Not awesome. But now like Leonard Fournette's getting somewhat consistent carries, which is crazy.
That is.
I thought he was buried.
Yeah.
But I mean, once again, this is an offense that does kind of focus on their QBs a little bit more.
Yeah, no, and
So.
Ed Orgeron really wanted to make a point of that this season that, they've turned themselves into a modern spread offense. And at the same time, they lack depth at running back, so it kind of works out. I mean, Burrow hit 14 different receivers.
23 completions. That's not bad.
That's pretty impressive, yeah. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to leave the Florida game early to catch the end of that. Cause
I might be streaming the damn thing in the first half anyway.
with the Wi-Fi they have in the swamp now, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
From what I've heard.
We might have to couple our phones together because I don't know how long my battery's going to last, but we'll make it work.
We'll make it work. Moving on to an ACC in-conference matchup, Miami goes to UNC. The Canes are a 4.5-point favorite in Chapel Hill. Miami, there were some good moments against Florida, but overall pretty sloppy, especially offensively. Can they right the ship at UNC and get in the win column?
I like UNC. I'm kind of on the boat with UNC. I don't think Miami necessarily showed us a whole lot, just like I don't think Florida necessarily showed us a whole lot. That was a weird game for both teams. Not sustainable for any team in college football. So I think they played cleaner, but UNC looked clean against South Carolina. They looked disciplined like most teams that I watched, or we both watched in week one, did not look. I like UNC.
They're 4.5 point underdog.
Yeah.
I think if they keep it relatively simple for Sam Howell, and defensively always they look good against South Carolina, and I don't think that Jerem Williams and that offense can take a large enough step from week 0 to now to really be consistent. I think that their offensive line is still going to be very porous. Jerem Williams is still going to get hit a lot. I'm going to take Miami, but I definitely see where you're coming from picking UNC. Moving out to the late night Pac-12 matchup, the 10:15 game on ESPN. Number 23 Stanford goes to USC. USC 1-point favorite, and Keaton Slavis making his first start in the USC Trojan uniform. KJ Costello questionable for Stanford. This is going to be a very intriguing matchup.
I like Stanford. I think they're more talented than USC if you take away the quarterbacks. Because there's a good chance Costello doesn't play. If he does play, I'm all in on Stanford. If he doesn't, I'm still willing to bet on Stanford. Plus, they just handle USC, it seems like. So, I like them there.
Yeah, I'll take Stanford as well. And that, like you said, historically, Stanford's had USC's number. And Stanford's defense is disgustingly good. Yeah. And the final game to touch on, Oregon State goes to Hawaii. Hawaii's a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under is 78.
I'll take them. I'll take it. I'll take both, actually.
This is going to be a lot of offense.
Yeah. Although I think Hawaii's defense may be a little better than people realize. But I like Hawaii there.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Oregon State's on the right path, but I don't think they're there yet, especially defensively. They looked actually pretty good offensively against Oklahoma State.
They did, no.
Defensively atrocious.
Yeah. I mean, you allow over 50 points to a true freshman quarterback in your place.
And made him look very good.
Now people are talking about that Sanders could lead Oklahoma State to a Big 12 contention.
Maybe not this year, but
down the road.
He has 4 years. He doesn't project pro. So
Oklahoma State's running back has my favorite name.
Chuba
Hubbard.
Chuba and Puka in the same conference.
That's gold.
Might as well touch on Florida while we're here.
Yeah, just might as well since we're homers. Florida hosts UT Martin. It's about a 44.5-point favorite.
It was 41.5 when I last saw it, but yeah, that's about right.
mean, basically,
If we don't cover, I'll be kind of angry.
That's the thing is, like, I'm expecting the Florida to be up by at least 40 at halftime.
Yeah.
And, I think here is just get in, leave with unscathed, no injuries, handle UT Martin kind of, And one thing that I liked about last year's team that I hadn't seen from a Florida team, and we kind of talked about it before, they blew out the FCS team that they were supposed to blow out, whereas in years past, that was not something that Jim McElwain's teams or Will Muschamp's teams really did.
Yeah.
And that I expect the same this weekend, that the Gators drop at least 50 to 60 on UT Martin.
And in UT Martin's first game last Saturday, they allowed nearly 500 yards of offense to an FCS team. But I look for Florida to establish the run, try to build the confidence of the offensive linemen a little bit. I think it's going to be kind of an inverse of what they did against Idaho last year, where they really opened up the passing and threw for 400 yards. I think you're going to see them run for probably near 400, hopefully.
And you're going to see P. Ryan's probably going to get 10, maybe 10 to 15 carries. Damian Pierce is going to get 10 to 15. Malik Davis, about 10. And I really, really want to see Iverson Clement play.
Yep.
The redshirt freshman. He's 4-star coming in. And I've heard very good things out of fall camp from him.
Works his ass off.
Yeah, and he's a kind of guy who's committed to the program, and even if he's that low in the depth chart right now, he's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I really want to see him in game action.
His chances will come. Running backs, you never know.
I mean, P. Ryan's going to leave this season. Who knows if Malik Davis can stay healthy.
Big if.
Or
if he can even be productive.
Yeah, if he has to get the yips away. They were there against Miami.
Definitely had the yips.
But hopefully, like you said, they do go away. I mean, he's a talented back. He's got, good skill set. So I want to hope the running game will probably be a staple.
Not worried about the defense.
If they allow, if we allow more than 2 touchdowns, then I consider that a loss.
Okay,
essentially,
with the starters and second team in, like garbage time's garbage time. Even Bama allows garbage time touchdowns.
Touche. Yeah, but that'll be a good primer for Kentucky the following week, which won't be easy going into Lexington. So that'll do it for the 3rd episode of the Bird and the Bear podcast. You can listen to previous episodes on our YouTube channel at the Bird and the Bear CFB on YouTube. And we'll be back next week to recap week 2 and then once again, obviously, preview week 3. Before we go, Cameron, I'm going to ask you, biggest surprise for this coming week. What's hot take for this week?
Shit, let me get my sheet up. Probably Texas over LSU, frankly. I feel like not a lot of people are picking that up.
LSU is a heavy favorite. So that I would say Texas is back if they beat LSU this week. I can firmly say that.
Hold your horses. They've won these kinds of games before.
They did beat Notre Dame 2 years ago, 3 years ago in their opener, and finished 5-7 again.
Yeah. So I'll buy them when they're actually in the playoff.
All right, we'll check. We'll keep a running tally of your hot takes going throughout the season and see how you do. So for Cameron Carriglio, I'm Michael Knauff. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week, and be sure to subscribe and like us on YouTube at The Bird and the Bear CFP. Have a good night, guys.